All right, so the Heat are up. Do you think the Pistons end up getting another pick here at the end of round one?
I would love to see them trade back into like in the 20s and take a guy like Tyler Smith. I think we were talking about him.
Yeah.
That's a guy that I would really like for them to take a chance on, even though it's another Ignite guy. You know?
Yeah, but it's
So,
the two Ignite guys that like
yep,
showed out at least. One on
exactly.
defense, one on
So,
offense. So you balance each other out.
yeah, I would love for them to trade back into it because I just feel like, again, even though you're
Oh, they're
not
showing
finding,
Madas crying. Come on, man.
I haven't seen that a lot too. I mean, like he has passion, just like Adam Morrison did. Um, But where is my train of thought going? I would like to see them trade back into this draft because again, even though you're not finding a superstar, the potential to find someone being and contributing on your team for like almost a decade, it's here. And if they play, and you might find someone that's going to be here for a while where you don't have to pay them a ton of money like you would at the top of the draft. Like I think there's some good value to be had later in this draft. So yeah, I hope they trade back into it.
Yeah, and with the Knicks now like re-signing everybody and clearly like trying to make big money moves, I wonder if Detroit can be like, "Hey, we'll take Mitch Rob off your hands, free up that money, and so you can get Hardenstein and give us
Yeah.
24 and 25." That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be something else right there. That'd be so cool if they were able to do that. Yeah, I don't know. Man, my mind is just all over the place for some of these for some of these trades that are going on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I like that Bleacher Report trade that was Marcus Sasser to the Phoenix Suns for the 22nd
Yeah,
pick.
I know. I was just about to bring that
Yep.
up too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that would be a nice ideal spot for the Detroit Pistons. You get Phoenix, you get a floor spacer and Marcus Sasser. Why not? You're not going to find him at 22.
Yeah, I mean, he fits there. They need somebody
Exactly.
like that. Whereas here, it's like you can't play him with the core.
Yup. And, you know, three assists to one turnover doesn't turn the ball over at all. Like that's not bad for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, absolutely for sure. I mean, younger can run into that same problem we brought up with the Wolves of like, as a young guy, you want to take a step forward. Like, you really got to feel confident. He's not a rookie, but he's still a second year guy. So you really got to feel confident that he is going to help you take the next step forward. Looks like the Heat are up here. I mean, yeah, I'm looking at ESPN's top guys on their board and Connect is there. Oh, they took Kalel Ware. So,
Ooh, I like that a lot too.
did you
Wow.
watch a lot of Kalel Ware?
I've actually started to this week, but I still like am not. I'm interested in his game because he came out of Indiana. I like what he brings. He seems like he plays with a lot of effort, but also, dude, I don't know. It's just like the good situation for him. I feel like in Miami, I just get that feeling though, but I don't know a ton about his game.
So it's another pick Scott made happen. He took Kalel Ware in our mock draft for the Heatles. So here he is. Another guy that looks like maybe he could stretch the floor. He didn't take many
Hmm.
threes, but he shot a good percentage there. The motor has mainly been the issue with Kalel Ware. Like coming out of high school, people were like, it just seems like he doesn't always play hard and doesn't really care all the time. That's part of what followed him at Oregon. And I mean, he played all year. I think his motor was better this year, but still, it's hard to get like super excited about a guy that was mainly a low post player who's going to take a while to like retransform into, if you want him to, a stretch big. Athletically, really good, but the motor things will follow him until he shows across multiple seasons. That's no longer the case. And we as Piston fans know if you have a center that you're drafting with motor problems, it could last a while.
This is true. This is true. I don't know. There's just some because like I look at the rebounding thing and I know it's like just a touch under 10 at 9.9, but rebounding is such an effort thing you have to give, and it's just one of those skills that I really do believe will kid that carries over to the next level. Like, I mean, you look at a guy like Reggie Evans. I mean, good rebounder in college, good rebounder in the NBA. Paul Millsap, good rebounder in college, good rebounder in the NBA. It's just one of those transferable skills. So I believe in a pick like this. And Miami just does something like, even if you're not like the most motivated or hungry player, they somehow just bring the best out of you.
Heat culture, yeah. If he's not motivated and his motor is terrible, he is not going to make it past his rookie year in Miami. That's for sure.
Yes.
They will weed you out. Jimmy Butler will personally choke you out and watch your eyeballs pop out of your skull.
Dude, Alonzo Mourning and Udonis Haslem might take you behind the arena.
That's true.
Like,
They do work in the front office still there. So yeah. And Pat Riley will give you the death stare until you do actually die.
yes. Man, God, I can't say it enough. I do love this draft. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, same. It's funny. I'm at the point now to where I'm like, oh, Dalton connect to the Pistons. I actually like it now.
I just got that message from one of my friends. He's like, dude, if I'm the Pistons, I'm picking up the phone. I'm trying to make a trade for whatever I can to bring Dalton Connect in.
Yeah.
But it's so funny that we were talking about him at number 5 and he's slipped so much. I think the age thing really does play a factor with these other teams as well.
Yeah, I mean, you laid it out great. We talked about it on my pod, the history of 23-year-olds going that high up. I mean, you have to buy into that of like Cam Johnson being the best recent player out of the bunch. You're like, okay, so my bet is that he's Cam Johnson. It seems like at 5, I'd rather take a chance on somebody else.
Yeah, I remember getting into a debate with someone about that. They're like, but look at Jaime Jaquez. You would draft him right now. And I was like, well, I mean, before I watched him in his rookie year, I would not have drafted him at number 5. But I mean,
Yeah.
if I had a crystal ball in front of me and I could predict what he was going to do, yeah, I would take him at number 5. He's like, well, see, then age doesn't matter. It's like, no, but because I already know how Jaime Jaquez played, I already know how he performed. But I'm much rather pass on older players, because again, for some reason, they just don't really pan out that way. There's just so few examples of them.
Well, Jam and I talked about this on the draft philosophy episode where he was saying you were asking like, do you draft more for best player available? Or you draft more for fit? And both of us said we lean more towards fit because it doesn't matter if the best player available doesn't fit into what you already have. And the example I always think of, because again, I'm here in Arizona and I always followed Arizona basketball growing up, is Derek Williams, who went to the Timberwolves. It's like he looked fantastic. I mean, he shot well, he scored a ton of points, but he was a power forward, and the Timberwolves drafted him when they already had Kevin Love. That was never going to work out. And who knows if Derek Williams had worked out somewhere else where like they actually gave him the power forward role from day one, but it never worked because they tried to force him into a role that he couldn't play, and like he was never going to play. So in that case, it's like, yeah, he was the best player after Kyrie at number 2 available, but he just never fit, and they could never make him fit in the roster they already had without moving Kevin Love, which is something you didn't want to do.
Man, and I loved Derek Williams coming
Yeah.
out of Arizona. I really thought he was going to be like the guy in the NBA. I was hoping that the Cavaliers drafted him number 1 overall because I thought he'd be like the next LeBron James. Just by looking at him, like his physical attributes, I'm like, dude, you got a chance to draft the guy that just left, bring him in. But you are right. Like he was also in that like that tweener kind of spot too at like 6'8",
Yeah, it was
240.
right before like the small ball stuff started to take off too. So
Yep.
maybe like 5 years after that, it's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was just one of those guys too where like he was so smart when he took shots at Arizona when it came from the outside, but that just did not carry over into the NBA.
Well, when you're like the power forward setting screens and being able to get low post touches and stuff, and then you go and Pekovic and Love are there, then you're just reduced to standing in a corner or like bringing up the ball and stuff. And then your point guards Rubio can't shoot, and I don't know if they have Kevin Martin yet or who else is on that team. But again, like you just look at how that roster was constructed, and Derek Williams was never going to work in that situation.
Yeah, they had Malcolm Lee, they had Darko Milicic on that team. They
Darko,
also had Michael Beasley
yeah,
and
yeah,
Martell
yeah,
Webster and Luke Ridnour, who's again one of my favorite guys. Oh, what a weird team to
yeah.
build.
Was that
Um,
Kahn? Was that David Kahn still?
I believe so. Yes. Yes, it
Yeah.
was. He was
Troy
the
Weaver is
executive.
probably the worst than David Kahn now because Troy didn't even draft anybody like Love and Pekovic and Rubio.
I don't, yeah, I think he would have passed on him. Well, he did.
And then Love
I,
wasn't enough of a center for him.
yeah, just he's just not big enough. He's just not big enough. I hated when Kevin Love left Minnesota just because Man, I wanted to see him like put up incredible numbers in the NBA, like when he averaged 26 a game for those 55 games. I just wanted to see him be like a 28 and 15 guy in the NBA, and I thought we would have gotten it. But then he goes to Cleveland, wins a championship, and becomes a role player.
It's funny now, like people have almost forgotten about that he was ever a Timberwolf because he just became so ingrained in Cleveland and the history of that team finally winning a title, bringing LeBron his title.
You think Jared McCain, where do you think he goes? This was a guy that I really liked for Detroit, not at 5, but just a guy that I really liked.
I think Orlando. I mean, Orlando. Anybody that, like I said, if he doesn't make it past the Sixers here, Dalton Connect probably goes to Orlando. Keyshawn George, any of those guys that like really good 3-point shooters, like Orlando has to take them. The Philly one I'm interested in because I have really no idea like what direction they're going to.
Maybe they go Dalton Connect, a little bit older. You never know.
Yeah, I mean he could work, especially if they're keeping everything together.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Jared McCain though, dude. Yeah, dude, I heard I won't even bring that up. Some about Jared
Come on,
McCain.
you started it. You started it.
No, it was just I
McCain
work
went
at
to
a
the
barber shop.
Sixers, so yeah, Jared McCain went to the
Okay.
Sixers if we didn't.
Yeah. I just saw that, but it's just one of those things like I hate when people bring up the extra stuff, like when they're talking about his painted nails. Like I'm just like,
Oh
dude, I don't
yeah,
really care at
if he
all.
got a sponsorship from a salon or whatever, right?
Yeah. I don't care about that at all, but like a lot of people that come into the barbershop know I love basketball and they know I have the podcast and they're like, what about the dude that paints his nails? What do you think about him? I'm like, dude, he's just a good basketball player. Like that's all I care
Maybe
about.
more
I don't
guys
care
should
what he
paint their
does.
nails so they could shoot like him then.
Dude, I
It's
mean,
part of his secret.
If I was Jared McCain, I would probably paint the middle finger a different color and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
So it
sure.
stands out. Oh man,
Also,
that's a
like
good pick though.
if you have a problem with men painting their nails, you must have never grown up around goths. Like, come on now.
For sure, right? But I do love that pick by Philadelphia. I think that's perfect. I think he can play
Yeah,
alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, and
yeah. Him
maybe he
and Maxie
makes.
are kind of small though, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's a good rebounder though for his size.
I mean, Maxie's
And
my guy. Another guy that Troy Weaver passed on 3 times. Thanks, man.
oh my
Imagine that.
gosh,
I mean, not to harp on Troy Weaver, but
yeah.
imagine if his 2020 draft, with those 3 picks he got, he was like, I'm going to take Devin Vassell with the first one, I'm going to take Tyrese Maxey with the second one, and then I'm going to take Jaden McDaniels with the third one. Imagine that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's hard for me. What if he drafted Malachi Flynn though with one of those picks?
That would be hilarious.
But I don't know. I look back on that and I've said it before. I think I said it to you. It was such a weird draft to try to get multiple picks in it
No, it
because
wasn't. Like I said,
yeah,
when you look back on it, you're like, it was a good idea. It's just who he stuck his neck out for and who he evaluated were the wrong guys.
I mean, I like the talent that's in there, but like there was just so much uncertainty and you couldn't really bring guys in. Like it was just so hard to like scout who these guys were. And like
No,
I don't know. I
bringing them
feel
in
like
is
it
where I
was.
disagree because I'm like, you still had the film. The film tells you
That's true.
90%, 90%, and sometimes 100% of what you need to know.
But I just feel like after Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, it was just kind of a crapshoot for every other team. You know, I feel like those two were the guys like you kind of knew they were going to be good in the NBA. Like you
Mhm.
just had a feeling. But the other guys, it was just I don't know. I'm just picking a name out of hat. I mean, I thought Tyrell Terry at a Stanford would go like in the top 14.
Yeah, I thought he had a chance, man. His shooting looked legit. So
Yep. I really liked him. And then, yeah, there was just a lot of guys. Even in the second round, though, I loved Saban Lee, but so strange. So strange,
yeah,
man. I really like Jay Scrub out of that one coming out of community college.
man, I
I
forgot about
really
that.
liked him.
All right, we got the Lakers coming up. Do they actually keep this pick or not? Or do we see Bronny James come off the board now? 'Cause that's for
Dude,
you, Zach, the man, the myth, the legend, Bronny James.
yeah, if they draft Bronny James, I don't know what I'll do.
Not if,
The-
when they draft Bronny James. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, but I mean, with 17. That's
They're not going to
just
use it anyway. If they
yeah.
had it, the only thing they would use it on is a trade.
This is true. This is true. That's what I hate about with LeBron James teams. If you're a young player, you don't want to play with LeBron James. You're not even a person. You're just a piece.
Yeah. Who knows if it's actually LeBron saying things too, but like any GM who has a brain is like, we can't have young guys that we don't know what they are.
I'm gonna like I might cry if it's like Tyler Smith at 17. I'll just be like, no, his career. No.
Yeah, somebody that needs time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be bad.
But I will say, who was the guy that was making good picks for the Lakers a few seasons ago? Like they had that run of like Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Josh
Was
Hart,
that
Kyle
Mitch Kupchak
Kuzma.
still back there?
I think it was, and man,
Yeah.
he was a good talent evaluator. Like
Like
he could find
LeBron's
some
ruined
guys.
two Laker teams. If he had just stuck it out with the players that he came into, Lonzo, I mean, hopefully Lonzo doesn't get hurt in that reality. Lonzo, Ingram, Randall, like that's a real squad around LeBron. And
Oh
then
yeah.
the dumber one, stupid Palinka, ruined. Like they won a title. Everybody worked perfectly, and then they traded it all away for Russ. Stupidest trade. Like one of
Yeah.
the sit at. I know it's not as disastrous as some of like other trades in NBA history, but it's got to ring up there as one of the dumbest.
Oh, it was stupid. Like you had just won a title. You had a real opportunity to run it back with Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and you just let them all go. And it was such an odd move, and I didn't understand why. Like Kyle
Yeah, and then
Kuzma knew his
KCP
role.
like snuffs you out the next year or a year or two later in Denver and shows you like, wow, he was really good. Why did we let him go?
Yep. And it's so weird because he's such a perfect player next to LeBron James. Just a guy that's going to stand on the perimeter and shoot threes and play defense. Like you're always looking for these guys to surround LeBron James with, and you had it, and you've won with this guy, and you still let him walk. Makes
I
no
know
sense.
he's somebody that like if I were somebody who was part of Clutch, like I would look at that situation and be like, I need to get away from Clutch because like they brought him there to LA, he re-signed, and then they just threw him under the bus and threw him away when they could get their superstar. And it's like, all right, man, if that's really what you think, then I don't need to be associated with you anymore. There's your Dalton Connect pick right there at the Lake Show.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's all connected. Hey, him and Austin
Yes.
Reeves. Yeah, he does.
He's the next fly white boy in LA.
Dude, they've had a good run. Dude, Alex Caruso, Austin Reeves, Dalton Connect.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
Connect, I mean, this is the exact pick where he should go. A veteran team that just needs his shooting skill set and athleticism. So yeah, this is a good fit. I wish he didn't go to the Lakers. I wish he went somewhere else that I like, but
Yeah, I'm not gonna root for him on the Lakers,
yeah.
you know. But watch, it's gonna be one of those things where he looks really good next to LeBron James because obviously LeBron James takes so much of the attention off of everybody else. We're
Yeah.
probably gonna hear all season, see, this is why I wanted the Pistons to
Yeah.
draft him.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that. God, I love it, man. I told my friend that Adam Silver looks just like him, and he's like, "Dude, stop!" And I'm like, "Dude, you know it's true."
Oh man. I'm sorry whoever Lance is referring to. I'm sorry.
So every time I see Adam Silver on screen, I'm like, "Oh, there he is. That's my boy."
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and speaking as a fellow bald guy with big ears, I'm sorry, man.
Dude, I was Zach's gonna hate me for saying this, but so Zach, he always wears a hat for obvious reasons, but I told him he should grow a ponytail in the back and just have it sit on his shoulder like it's a bird.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, dude, you're the worst. I was like, I would pay you to do that. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I got a little man bun on top right now.
Yeah, so as you all know, I'm native. I always joke that my brother got all the good genes because he has like long, flowing, curly hair, dark,
Oh my gosh.
and it stayed all there. Like he got high cholesterol, but like my knees are shot as like the rest of my the native side of my family. Like my mom's knees are shot. All my aunts and uncles, their knees are shot, and my brother's like, dude, it's totally fine. So yeah, and then I went bald, and he like gets this nice golden tan every time he goes outside in the sun, where I just burn like a lobster. I'm like, oh man, I got all the bad genes.
Oh my gosh. But hey, you were the better athlete though. That's all that matters.
Not anymore.
You still have it over him though.
Yeah, but I mean, me and my brother get along really good. Like we were never competitive like that though. So
Okay, I mean, okay. Yeah, me and my brother, we would be real competitive when we were kids, and it always ended in a fight, usually by him. But
yeah, we only got in a fight ever once, and it was one of those old like cordless phones that you could pull the antenna out of. And he like pulled it out and hit me with it, and then the phone like shattered into a million pieces. And immediately the fight was over, and we're like, "Oh, we're in trouble." And trying to figure out how to
no,
put it back together. And that
now
was
we
the
team
last
up
fight.
together.
That was the last like physical fight, maybe the only physical fight we ever had.
Oh, dude, my brother got mad at me over pizza rolls one time. It was the wildest
Of
thing
course,
because,
food, like food, you can't
yeah,
mess with food.
he's like, dude, you ate all 150. I was like, dude, 150 pizza rolls? Are you kidding me? And yeah, dude, he was the wrestler. So like I was the
Oh,
basketball player, he was the wrestler. So even though I was
cutting
older
weight.
than him, yeah, no, no, dude, he was one of the heavier
Oh,
wrestlers.
okay.
Yeah, he's a big dude. But he got into my he also the last physical fight we got into was over Madden. I wasn't even playing. So I know we're talking about the NBA draft, but since I'm bringing it up, I think it's hilarious. I'm sitting in the chair and our friends are over, and I was like, "Hey, did you know the NFL doesn't keep track of tackles as an official stat?" He's like, "What do you think's on NFL.com?" And then the Madden fact that popped up on the screen said NFL doesn't keep track of tackles as an official stat. So I just kind of smiled and
Oh,
gave
that's
him a
hilarious.
look, closed my eyes. Next thing you know, this dude's just on top of me,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
that was the last fight. It was nuts.
Speaking of food, though, I had a friend who, like, his brother would always take his food. So, wherever he was, he'd just come and his older brother would take it. So he's like, one time I took a Hot Pocket and just put it in the microwave for like 10 minutes. Just nuke that thing to the max. Then I was like, hey, Juan, you want a bite of my Hot Pocket? And he took a bite in it and just head burst into flames.
Oh my gosh, I'd be so mad at that.
His brother never asked for food again, that's for sure.
Ugh.
All right, so
We're the
Orlando
teacher.
just picked Tristan da Silva at 18, one of my favorite players here. I mean, another guy like Dalton Connect, where you're like, he's just going to work. He shoots. He's bigger than Dalton Connect. Defensively, like, still a question mark, but he tries and he can do some off-ball stuff. Like Tristan da Silva, just he's like a Marcus Morris type, where you're like, sure, he's not flashy, but he just works. And every coach that has him is like, yo, this dude knows what to do. I really like him.
Didn't Sam Vecini say he's the best cutter in the NBA
Yeah,
draft?
yeah.
And I think that makes sense with a guy like Paolo and Franz.
Yeah, and I watched him a lot, not this season, but the past season. He was playing center at Colorado because they didn't have anybody like taller than him
Jeez.
most days. And when they played us here in Tucson, I went to see him and like he had to guard Omar Ballo, who's like 7 feet 300, and he had to guard Azuolas Tubelis, who's like 6'11, like 230. And he did good. He did fine. So he has the ability to guard up. I don't think he's going to be guarding Embiid or anything like that in the NBA, but he's one of the most versatile dudes in the draft. I mean, at Colorado, he played everywhere from shooting guard to center. And this year, they were really good because they finally got him Eddie Lampkin, who's like 6'11, 300. And then they were able to actually get a wing in Cody Williams, so where they're not like, hey, go guard the centers, or like, dude, you got to be shooting guard tonight. You could actually play like naturally at one of the forward spots.
Yeah, he looked like he had a really good career at Colorado. He's just a guy, another one of those dudes that kind of slipped off my radar until a little bit later, where
All
I
you
thought
East
of the
Coast guys, you don't know nothing about the Pac-12 dudes because you can't stay
dude.
up till like 1 a.m. anyway.
Okay, dude, for a long time, one of my guilty pleasures in life was just a can of Coke and watching whack basketball at midnight, like
Well, if you didn't like it,
Gonzaga.
you don't got to call it whack.
Yeah. Oh, come on, stop.
Yeah, the Lobos, my Lobos, I'm wearing my UNM stuff. They were in the whack for a while, so.
Dude, there was one guy there. I think his name was Devin Watkins, and he played for the University of San Francisco. And I think he scored like 40 points against St. Mary's or BYU. But it was one of those late night games that I watched, and he was only like 5'11", 6 foot. But I thought he would be the steal of the draft, and I don't think he even got drafted. I think he ended up going to San Diego and playing for the Aztecs after that. But that dude was awesome.
Yeah, I know. I didn't realize how late the games were on until I moved to Michigan, and then I would stay up to watch Lobo football or basketball, and they would literally start at 11 p.m. at night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize the time difference was that severe. And I know I watched some Pac-12 basketball, and there were games that would end at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning. It's like, bro, now I understand. So as but you are spoiled when you're in the West Coast because then like all the football games and stuff start super early. Even the night games end at like 9 o'clock or whatever, so it's manageable.
I loved watching sports when I got to go to Hawaii. We were eating breakfast and it was like overtime in college football. I was like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh man, yeah, Devin Watson was his name. I'll never forget it. Devin Watson for University of San Francisco. 6'1", 165 pounds. That was the guy.
Man,
Oh my gosh. Who's I don't like this. I'm watching on YouTube TV, but like it's not like past drafts where they would always have the players best available on the screen. I haven't seen it once since
oh
we've been
really? I don't know
doing
what you're
this.
watching because I'm watching the ESPN one and they keep putting it up there. Like Jacoby Walters at the top of their list right now. Johnny Furphy comes after that. Then they have like Filipowski and Keyshawn George. Again, man, if I'm the Pistons, I'm really trying to get Keyshawn or Furphy. I like Furphy, but I think Keyshawn, like, just believe in him more as a shooter.
I was just about to ask you about Furphy. Like he has good size for a prospect and a good shooting stroke, but like why do you think a guy like that wasn't like a serious consideration for the lottery?
Number one, like, there's little to no self creation. So that's
Ooh,
just the
okay.
thing. Like, if you can't create for yourself or others at a high level, then lottery consideration is out of the question in 90 to 99% of drafts. So that's it there. The other thing is his numbers are kind of skewed. Like the percentage was like 35%. It looks like you're like, oh, he's not as good as a shooter as I thought he was. But what you have to remember is he had to operate in some terrible conditions. He was Kansas's leading three-point shooter. He took the most out of everybody there. He worked with a guard in DeJuan Harris who couldn't shoot. He worked with a guy in Hunter Dixon who, if you watched any Michigan basketball, sure he can shoot the occasional three, but he mainly needs to work down low. Kevin McCullough started out the year hot from three, but then cooled off and got injured and fell out. KJ Adams is their starting power forward who cannot shoot at all. And then he had other guys like Marco Jackson who just sucked and didn't shoot very well at all season. I mean, he was the 3 point spacing. He had to do that no matter what. And then later in the year too, there were games where Dewan got hurt, so he had to take on more usage. Furphy, and then Hunter got hurt, so he had to take on power forward role. While KJ, who's 6'7", 220, had to take on the center position. So now your center 6'7", 220, and your power forward's like 6'8", 195. But he still did a great job. He's incredibly physical. Like he's not afraid to get his hands and his face dirty. Underrated weak shot shot blocker. There's a lot to like about Johnny Furphy as a supplementary dude, but the reason why he didn't climb up boards is that, like, again, there's not really any creation ability to speak of in the film, and then his numbers just didn't look that good because he had to make up for the lack of spacing at Kansas, and then when everybody got hurt, he had to take on a ton of stuff that he wasn't ready for.
Hmm. I like that. I like that analysis and breakdown of his game. I really do. I thought I
Yeah,
was
because
just
I
looking
was
at his
trying to make
numbers.
the case for him at five. Because about February, like he was shooting the lights out and everything, and then when everything happened in the year, it's like, oh man, can't do this because the size and everything else worked. And he's an underrated athlete. Like he pulled out like 4 or 5 dunks that I was like, oh, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I remember he was like I remember seeing the highlights at the beginning of the year when he was kind of went on his run with Kansas and I remember them I think they had talked about him being like a top 10 or top 5 pick at one point.
Lottery, yeah, definitely
Yeah,
lottery guy.
but I remember I'm just looking at his numbers and I'm like, man, when I watched him play, I thought his numbers would again not bad, but I thought they'd be. I thought he was like a 20-point scorer in college, but average 9. So even though that doesn't mean he wouldn't be able to do something in the NBA, but just looking at those numbers, it kind of surprised me a little bit. So now that we're at like what pick 19, do you still see the Pistons? What are the chances you think they actually trade back into this draft?
I mean, I think it's still pretty good because again, New York. Cleveland, Pelicans. I don't think Toronto's trading, but definitely with New York, I could see that happening. And if there's any other team down here that like they just need to get off salary, then yeah. Well, Jacoby Walter just went to the Raptors.
Ooh.
Very un-Masai like, but I mean, Jacoby put up a ton of threes. He started off super red hot. People were talking about him as a top five pick, but then I think he ended the year like the conference play, he shot something like 29% from three or something. Like he really cooled off in conference play. Part of it's that he had to be either the lead scorer or the second leading scorer every night as a freshman on a Baylor team that's expecting to be national title consideration. Super hard for any freshman to do. So you got to give him that. But again, the percentages just were never that great. And not a good passer. As a defender, he probably can only guard like shooting guards, maybe point guards. I don't know anybody that really wants to go to bat for him being that athletic. So it's hard. It's like you want him to be more of a supplementary wing, but he's 6'5" ish, not incredibly wing size. I can give you his exact measurements from the combine here in just a second. Walter, he was 6'4" and a quarter inch without shoes, 197 pounds, and then 6'10" wingspan. So the wingspan is good for that size, but 6'4" and quarter inch, again, it's too small for a wing, not a passer, so he's not really a ball handler and a guard. He's kind of stuck in between positions. You hope the three-point shooting gets better as an NBA player surrounded by NBA talent, but we shall see.
I've kind of given up on Baylor basketball players over the
Oh,
years. I mean, it just
Keyshawn
seemed,
George, man, I love Keyshawn George.
yeah, I mean, but I don't know. Just a lot of Baylor guys, I've just never,
Did you get
I
burned on
don't know.
Jared Butler or something?
No, dude. Man, I'm trying to think of his name. Who's the guy that was drafted by Oklahoma City after
Perry,
Kevin?
was that Perry Jones?
Yes, dude. He was one of the first guys that I was like, dude, I thought he was going to be good. But it seems like year after year, they have like good basketball teams. But I can't tell you many guys from Baylor that have really made it in the NBA.
Yeah, let me, because I did this with Ivy and Purdue, because when I dove into it to see who like is the most successful Purdue player, I don't know if I did this with you on my pod or yours. Have I done this with you before?
No.
So who's the most successful Purdue player in the NBA?
Ooh, oh man, I'm blanking on his name. Glenn Robinson, right?
Yep, he's the last successful NBA player, from Purdue as well. And I think he was what 1990, 1987, somewhere in there. In between then and now, there hasn't been a guy from Purdue that's become like an NBA starter. So I wonder. I only bring that up because I'm like, is that the same thing with the Baylor guys here? I mean, Royce O'Neal. I'm looking at the Baylor. If you just click on the guy's profile, like find somebody and then click on their college, it will bring up all the guys from that college. So from Baylor, number one is David Wesley. Two is our guy, the microwave, Vinny Johnson.
Ooh.
Then Terry Teagle. Now I'm just looking at minutes played. Royce O'Neal's fourth, Torian Prince is fifth. And then like out of recent guys, I mean Davion Mitchell's 10th, Sohan's 11th, and then Keyshawn George is 13th. So those are your hope right there is Sohan and Keyshawn to turn or Keontae to turn it around. So I get your point now.
Yeah, just not. Yeah, I actually forgot about Sohan too as well,
I
coming
forgot
out of
Royce
Baylor.
O'Neal because that was like he's an undrafted guy too, and Torian Prince too. I forgot both of them came from Baylor.
Yeah, it's just I was fooled by Perry Jones. But then also
And you were not
uh
the only one.
what was his name for Sacramento? Davion Mitchell. I thought he would be a stud in the
Yeah, a lot
NBA,
of people
but
fell for that one for sure. And he could still be fine, but I don't think he's going to turn into. I mean, they just drafted Devin Carter tonight, so that tells you where
yeah,
Davion Mitchell's
yeah.
career is going in Sacramento.
Even though he does have like a really cool, awesome stat. I think he had like what 22 assists or something in an NBA game,
Yeah, I
which
mean, unfortunately, he's another example of don't draft guys 22 years or older in the
yep.
lottery.
Yeah, he started, yeah, his first when he first started playing the NBA, he was 23 years
Yeah.
old. So you really gotta, I don't know what it is about those guys, but he actually had a really good rookie year in the NBA, 11-4 with almost a steal per game.
I mean,
But
if
when
I were the Pistons, I would look into him. He's what Sasser isn't, and that's a high level defender and better 3-point shooter. You probably want him to shoot more, but
oof, man, I don't know. I keep looking at his numbers and now I'm kind of getting like kind of falling in love again. But I got to talk myself out
I
of
mean, just look
it.
at the true shooting percentage 48.9, 54.5, 55.5. We can't have another guy like that. So I take back my thought.
Yeah. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I wonder who Cleveland takes at number 20. I'm confused. I'm curious. So
Yeah,
we'll
I know
see.
them. I have no idea.
I figured just kind of more maybe like a 3-and-D guy if you could find him
Do you
in
think they're
this
dumb
draft.
enough to let Donovan Mitchell like actually walk, or do they finally figure out in the next 6 months that he doesn't want to be there?
I just he'd be a great I don't know what I don't think you'd get value back for him if you were to trade him, but I don't think they're dumb enough to actually let him walk. I do think that they would try to make a move if he really did want out, but I don't know. I think I'd rather move Darius Garland than I would Donovan Mitchell, to be honest with you.
Why?
I just feel like Donovan Mitchell's a little bit more dynamic. I really, even though he's undersized at like what 6'1", 6'2", there's just something about his game where like if it's the right situation and you just kind of call it lightning in a bottle, you could go like you could make a real deep run with him as your number one guy. I really feel like that about him. I don't feel that way about Darius Garland.
Yeah,
I feel like Darius Garland's more of a complementary piece on a good team.
I agree with that, but the guys that scare me the most for like being competitive teams that you want to try and make it to the finals are dudes that were really good defenders that all of a sudden suck. Like Mikhail, it's part of the reason why I've been out on like, obviously Mikhail went to New York, but when that conversation was a thing, I was like, I don't think I want that anymore. Just because when you turn it off because your usage is so high, I mean, it sends a clear message that you're like, I'm the superstar. I don't need to do those things. And with Mitchell in particular, like that was one of the big things that people sold him on in the draft in those first few years in Utah. He was good and he has like a really big wingspan. I think he has something like a 7 foot wingspan. He's like 6'1". It's really like
It's crazy.
incredible and you know, an anomaly. And when you have those things over the competition and you could guard point guards and like smother them and all that, and it's clear like you don't care about defense, that's the part to me that's always scary. And then factor in the other part of it just seems like he's always wanted to go to New York. It's just like, Cleveland took Jalen Tyson. That's a good pick.
Ooh, I don't even recognize that name to be honest with
So
you.
Jalen,
So
another Pac-12 guy. You probably people in the East Coast were not able to stay up for. Jalen Tyson played at Cal. Again, another reason why a lot of people didn't see him because he played for Cal and they're hot garbage. They're one of the worst teams. Sorry, any Cal fans out there. Jalen Tyson measured in at 6'5.5" at the combine, 218 pounds, 6'8" wingspan. Last season, give you more of a breakdown for Jalen Tyson. At Cal, 19.6 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.5 blocks. Shooting splits for Mr. Tyson were 50.9% from 2 point range, 36 from 3 point range on 4.5 attempts per game, and then 4.6 from the free throw line. Jalen Tyson, 3 point attempt rate, 29.1%, kind of low. Free throw attempt rate, 29.8%. But assist percentage, 23.6% on 30.1% usage. I mean, dribble, pass, shoot. If there's any upperclassman that has like legitimate upside to become a creator and something else, it's Jalen Tyson. He had to take a ton of tough shots and a ton of usage for a Cal team that was incredibly deficient in terms of talent and managed to get them to 13-19. Want to know what their record was the year before without Jalen Tyson?
man, I can click on it right now, but I don't want to cheat you. Was it a losing record?
3-29. So they went
Okay,
from
wow,
three
yeah.
and 29. Then Jalen Tyson gets there, leads the team to 13-19. Yes, it's still losing, but I mean, that just shows you the level of improvement and that he's a legitimate NBA guy that people had to guard because again, he's 6'7" or 6'6". He can pass. He's a pretty good defender. He can shoot, legitimate creator for himself and creator for others. Interesting to see like what happens with him in Cleveland if they give him actual time.
It's just one of those things though where like I'm looking at the highlights right now where I don't know. I just think this is a guy that I'll look back on the NBA draft, like on Basketball Reference, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to that guy." Like it's just so weird. Like as I've been watching these since I was like 11 years old, and that's 22 years. Holy crap! And it's every you start to identify these guys where you're like, I don't think they're going to be here in the NBA for a long time. And for some reason, I'm getting that vibe from Jalen Tyson. But now he might prove me wrong. So who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Again, to me, it was just that he had actual ability to pass and shoot and do things for himself and others. And everybody was always looking for the next wing. So
Yeah,
there's
I'm
some
not hating
upside
on your
there.
analysis, by the way. I
Yeah,
really
yeah, no, no, no.
respect
I
it.
know what you
So yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, in the NBA draft, my one of my overarching philosophies with the draft is the vast majority of people fail.
Yep.
Like that's honestly what bothers me with a lot of draft analysis is that they talk about everybody like they're LeBron James, and it's like, okay, number one, again, like so many people fail. The vast majority of guys draft don't work out. So you got to be realistic with it too. And sure, there are guys that you like and put above everybody else. And those are the ones that you should sell of like, hey, do this. And also don't be like hyperbolic. Like not, I hate it when like you look at comps for people and like all 60 guys or all, in this case, all 58 guys like are compared to like all stars or NBA level starters. And you're like, that's not going to happen. If that happened, this would be the greatest draft in the history of sport.
That's why I always look like when I look at mock drafts, I'm always in the back of my mind, like, okay, this is best case scenario for everybody they're talking about. Like, it's obviously not going to happen this way, but they're kind of filling in like, if everything works out, this is how good this player can possibly, this is how good this player can be. But you're right. It's just there are times I like fall in love with every single player, and I think they're all going to be all stars, and that's just not possible. But I did want to ask you, like, how do you begin the scouting process for yourself? Like,
So
what do
real
you
quick
look
before we
for in
do that,
players?
Eve's Messi just went to the Pelicans at 21. So see, Zion's got a center there.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Do you mean like,
I,
so going back to your question though, beginning the scouting process, like for a player, for a draft cycle, like what exactly do you mean?
yeah, like how do you scout players? Like, what are you looking for in a player? Like, are you looking just at the physical attributes? Like, what are you looking for when they're on the floor? Like, how do you watch basketball? I guess is what I'm asking. A little bit loaded of a question, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. I mean, first I always go through and see who like RSCI and these top ranked dudes are, and just kind of scour through and watch film of each player. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like you, for me, I'm like, do they affect the game, whether or not they're putting up stats? You know, Cade is my best example for this. I honestly stopped watching Cade Cunningham film, like analysis wise. I would just watch the game because I loved him after that. But after I think it's the 10th game when they played Wichita State that year, he had 10 points in that game. I mean, he was terrible, but he, number one, hit the game winning shot. And then the very next possession came down on a weak side rim protection to block the shot to seal the game. And I was like, after that point, I'm like, okay, I don't need to see anymore. I understand that he affects every single part of the game, whether or not he scores, because of all the little things. In addition to playing defense, in addition to getting his teammates open and keeping his focus to where the game's still close. I don't care what I shot. I know I'm taking the shot to win the game. So things like that. Now, not every player obviously is going to do that, but things of like, okay, if they're not the featured player, like, do they focus in on defense? Or is it clear they're trying to do things to affect the outcome of the game? A guy I really liked in the last draft cycle that I picked to be, the Matt Penny special, which is RSCI 51 or under, who was going to end up being good. It didn't pan out, but it was Caden Cooper, who played for Oklahoma this last year. And it was the reason
Yeah.
for that, too, of like, he didn't always be the lead guy. A lot of time in the EYBL circuit, he was like two or third banana, but it was clear he understood I'm the primary defender. I want my defense to get in there and mess things up, and I need to work on being supplementary guy that the team has to guard, and it's going to open up my other teammates. Like those kinds of things stick out to me first. Is sure, look, they create a bunch of points and stuff like that, but do they do things that affect the outcome of the game?
Hmm. Because reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to watch basketball differently. Like I'm trying to really dive into like to the X's and O's and understand like how it plays. Because this was like, I mean, I play basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like I know where to go on the court. I know how to do that stuff. But like when I watch basketball, I'm like, it's different. Like I'm always watching the ball. But I remember like it clicked for me in football when I was watching Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota when they were playing. And I remember just knowing the difference. Like, I remember telling someone, I'm like, dude, Jameis Winston's going to have the longer career. And they're like, well, why do you think that? And I'm like, dude, he's the first quarterback that I've ever watched where like after he hikes the ball, he actually reads through his progressions. Like he's actually diagnosing the defense as it is unfolding, right in front of him. And then I remember watching Marcus Mariota where it's like he's not really reading the defense. He's just kind of thrown to a spot because he knows his guy is going to be there, regardless of what the defense is showing him. The play says, dude, you need to throw to this guy. That's what I'm going to do. But with Jameis Winston, it was like, yeah, this is my number one option, but like the defense isn't showing that he's going to be the number one option on this play. And I'm trying to figure that out for basketball when I watch it, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, because one of the draft lessons I've learned the hard way is that you just have to bet on the guys with size. Like Jaden McDaniels comes to mind. I was really low on him because I was like, he's this he's trying to be a number one option guy. He's super like inefficient. Doesn't really seem like he has the strength to do anything. Let's rank guys like Tyrese Maxey above him. And obviously I was right on Maxey, but still to be that low on McDaniels was wrong because he was still 6'8" with that long wingspan that even if he ended up being an average defender, like it means something. And I think that that's part of it is when you find guys with unusual measurables, like that means something and it gives them such an advantage, especially in basketball with wingspan. Like the dudes with the big wingspan, that's why teams invest in them most. Because even if they're a short guy like Donovan Mitchell, we were just talking about, that's such a physical advantage he has over everybody else his size, or even guys taller than him who don't have that, that you can leverage that into some kind of mismatch on defense or on offense. That's the other part of it too, is like factoring in the anthro stuff and understanding, okay, even if Jaden McDaniels doesn't end up being a lead scorer, like can we use his body type and his abilities in another way, which Minnesota obviously did.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm trying to, like, when I watch basketball, like, I'm looking for things that you can't really measure, like on a tape, where it's like, I mean, like it doesn't show up in the box score, but it's like effort, hustle, defense. I mean, obviously steals and blocks can be a thing, but we've seen Hassan Whiteside average a ton of blocks in a game. It doesn't mean he was a good defender, like, so I'm trying to watch for that stuff, but like, I don't know if I'll ever figure out the scouting thing. Like the guys that have the eye for that, I just like at this point, I just don't get it. Like I feel like the most of the time, like when I get my stuff, I'm just
I
watching
don't
other
think anybody
people.
gets it. You know what I mean? I don't think
Yep.
anybody is that like inherently like, oh, I saw this and this is what worked out. I once heard a story about Bill Walsh, Michael Lombardi, who worked for Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Browns, and a couple other teams as a GM. He was like one of his assistants at the time, and it was some draft in the 80s or early 90s, and he said they showed up to the combine and they're just getting their seats and they're shuffling around trying to find a seat. And he said all of a sudden, Bill pointed at this guy warming up on the field. He's like, "Who? Give me the tape of all that guy." I mean, they didn't. Nobody had no idea who it was. They just got there, whatever. And he's like, the guy he pointed at was Rich Gannon. I think that kind of evaluator, he's obviously he's Bill Walsh, you know, Bill Walsh. There's only one of one. I think that kind of evaluator just doesn't come around very often. If they do, they're Bill Walsh, right? I think everybody else, like, it takes time, and every draft class you still have to put in the same amount of work, and it's almost like you're learning things all over again. And
Makes sense.
I think the best scouts go in with the mindset that I'm going to be wrong a lot. and I don't care because I just have to be right a few times. Like I laid out I sent out a tweet a while back about Sam Presti because I forgot what made me think about this is that Sam Presti's thought of as like a really good drafter, right? But his success rate is only like 40%.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you think about it, in any other profession where your success rate is 40%, you're getting fired. And Sam Presti's like the top of thought of as the top of the profession right now. That's how hard it is, and that's how often people are going to be wrong. I forget it. It was something like from 2012 to like 2019 or whatever. Like none of his drafts panned out. They all sucked. They were terrible. But he was right enough. He was right, what, three times? KD, Russ, and Harden. You just have to be right a few times. And then after all those other picks that sucked and they didn't work out, then all of a sudden they start getting like J Dub and Giddy and whatever, and you started getting right again. You just have to be right enough times. And I think that's just like what you have to approach it is like, okay, I'm probably going to be wrong, but what can I learn from like last time? And also what stands out to me here that makes me feel that these players are going to be NBA players. I don't know if that helps, but I think definitely the approach of going into it of like knowing you're going to be wrong because there's no way around it. You're going to be wrong a lot.
No, I mean, I think that does make sense. Like, I guess I never really thought about. I mean, I reflect on my wrongs a lot, but I don't really know why I'm wrong. Like, I remember one draft where I was like super high on Julius Hodge coming out of NC State, where I was like, man, this guy can pretty much do everything on a basketball floor. But then when I look back on it, I'm like, well, I guess he couldn't really do anything that was like considered elite. Like he was just a player. And I think that's kind of the thing I'm looking for is like I look based on my prospects on like, do they have two elite skills? And then I try to identify what are those two elite skills. But then there's some guys that are like Cade Cunningham, and I love to make this comparison for him as Brandon Roy. I think those guys are like, I think you can really compare those two
Yeah.
in the sense that they neither of them are elite at anything, but they're just really good at basketball, and they're the outliers to all of that stuff. It's from like at least how I evaluate players. Like they don't have elite skills that you can pinpoint and say they're really good at those things. They just happen to be really, really good at everything else. And that's it. And then, like, I don't know, they're just the outliers. But like Julius Hodge, I think you could kind of put in that mold where he was just really good at everything. But for some reason, it didn't click like it clicked for those two. But he also didn't have any elite skill sets.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I want to get back into this, but Deron Holmes just got picked up by
Yeah.
the Suns. Fantastic pick here. I know a lot of people are thinking they're going to trade it, but man, this is the exact kind of big that they need. He can stretch the floor a little. He's a good passer. He can block shots. Like I know they need somebody right now, but man, Deron Holmes is one of the guys I really wanted the Pistons to take. Listed or weighed and measured in at 6'8" and 3/4 inches at the combine, 236 pounds, 7 foot one wingspan. Last season, Duran scored 20.4 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 0.9 steals, 2.1 blocks per game, 58.5% from 2 point range, 38.6% from three, and then 71.3% from the free throw line. I mean, he got to the free throw line a ton too, 72.4% free throw attempt rate. So everything you want in a modern big. He's a lob threat. He's a good athlete. He can attack off the dribble some. You can run him in DHOs, and he can pass like at a high and mid post. And the shooting came along really well this year. Man, that's a good pick for the Suns if they keep it.
Dude,
But yeah, to go
really,
back to your thought, it's weird in football. Like I think in football rankings suck, and you don't pay attention to them. Go back and look at any 5 star guys that got 5 star rankings coming out of high school. The majority of them are not NFL players. Whereas in basketball, it's the opposite. Like guys that get 3 star and below, there are very, very few of them that become NBA players. So that's the part of it because it's multiple scouts over multiple years that say, okay, you know, these guys do this, and that's why we think they're these 4 star, and 5 star guys. And I don't think it can be boiled down to any one thing. Sometimes, it's just a size thing. Sometimes it's size and skill. Sometimes it's feel. But when I come up with ranking systems, the things I do look for at the top are like shot creation, because that's at the end of the day, like what everybody values number one. is shot creation. And then number two is like being a defensive anchor, being somebody who like just by your presence, you create a top 10 defense. Bam Adebayo, when sometimes guys like this intersect like Wembanyama. That's why Wembanyama is maybe the best prospect ever because he's both a defensive anchor and a shot creator that does not come around. And then the other thing is size. This one is kind of like the bad one, though. The examples I can use are like Michael Olowokandi or Kwame Brown. Like the main reason they're picked is because they just have unusual size, and they're like, okay, we want to bet on that because we need a guy this big. So I think that's the place to start. And when you look at it like historically, yeah, sure, those are the guys you should bet on above everybody else. And when you look back at drafts and like where people miss, it's like, oh, I wonder why Paul George and Kawhi went so low when Paul George is a 6'9" shooting guard and Kawhi has like hands bigger than my entire body. And these things that you could look back and be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like they had these things that should push them up further. But yeah. And then there are guys like Kyrie, to where like Kyrie, since he touched the basketball, you could tell this guy is a shot creator and a ball handler better than maybe anybody I've ever seen.
Mm. I feel like I just got a lot of work to do when it comes to this.
That's sort of the thing, though. Like, I don't think it's just you; it's everybody. Like,
Yeah,
scouting is one of those things that if you think you're good at it, you're not. Like, you're never going to be good at it. You just have to constantly work at it, in my
that's
opinion.
true. No, I appreciate that too. Like I don't know, man. Like I
I
feel
think
like
you're
I've
only
got
like a bad evaluator if you stop putting in work.
yeah, it's like what my friend would always say. He's like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I guess
Yeah.
the same thing in scouting. If you're not learning, just get out of it.
Yeah, and the
So,
game like changes so much too. Well, we just talked about it with Derek Williams, whereas like Derek Williams is this, didn't work out, and then 5 years later he'd probably be like the number one overall pick, and so
no, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just love this game. I just want to be good at talking about it, breaking it down, doing all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just love this game so much, man.
word. So AJ Johnson just went to the Bucks. If you don't know AJ Johnson, he's a guard who played down in the NBL in Australia with the Illawarra Hawks. Really struggled. I'm actually pretty surprised he went in the first round. Like athletically, I buy into it, but I mean, this kid's super skinny, and he was not ready to play in the NBL. They barely played him, and so to come in to the NBA, it's obviously the Bucks, so they don't need him to play right away. But they just took a kid who is 6'4" and a quarter inch, 167 pounds, 6'8" and a half inch wingspan. So that's where it is. So yeah, this AJ Johnson pick, the Bucks obviously have a type to where they're like, if you're young and athletic and you're raw, we're gonna take you and hope it pans out. That's what happened with Marjan Beauchamp. Shout out Marjan, another one of my native ballers in the league still. So nice to see Resball live in the NBA. Yeah, AJ Johnson is just, it's hard to take a guy that skinny and that like not ready.
Yeah, he didn't average a ton of points per game
He didn't
either for
average a
the.
ton of minutes either.
Yeah. See, this is something I've always thought about. Like, I don't want to just say European players, but like, f- I don't even want to say foreign basketball players, but overseas basketball players. If they can't
AJ
get
is an American player who played overseas though.
okay, well, like, okay, but I think my point will still stand when I say this to you. Like, if you can't get minutes in a league that has less talent than the NBA, what makes you think they're going to get minutes in a more talented league? Like, I thought about this with Drajan Bender when he was drafted. I'm like, you're drafting him to be, I think, like the next Kristaps Porzingis, but like Kristaps was actually getting minutes when he played overseas, and he was actually putting up numbers. This guy was not, and he was playing in a lesser league. I guess I don't understand the thought process. Like potential can only get you so far. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you seeing in this many limited minutes where you're like, I'm going to draft him in the first round?
Yeah, I know. Especially like if you're just drafting him and going to the G League, which is probably what this is. Yeah, I don't get it either. But again, the NBA is always going as much as they say like, oh, it's changed and they don't draft certain player types anymore. They're always going to draft guys that are highly ranked and are very athletic, which AJ Johnson is. Even if he didn't produce yet, there's just too many guys beforehand you could name like that, where like, oh, their main thing is athleticism, even if they don't have a skill set quite ironed out yet. People are always just going to roll the dice on them no matter what. And sometimes it pans out like Giannis, and a lot of times it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, man,
This is
gosh,
something I'll
Giannis
have to
is.
look into in the future because Giannis is the example of of pushing back against what you're saying. But my gut is like I think Giannis might be the only example of that. I'm sure there's more, but yeah, I don't feel I would never feel very confident in doing that. And even Giannis had more production than that, way more.
Yeah, I remember like looking up like Nicholas Tavishki's numbers, and I think he was like a top four pick by Denver, and not great numbers overseas. You know what I'm saying? And it's just happened for a lot of these guys. Like, but guys that I was looking at where I'm like, all right, they were getting minutes and they were putting up numbers. Guys like Mikhail Petrus, Tony Parker, they Manu Ginobili, Rudy Fernandez, even though he only played 4 years in the NBA. Uh, what was the guy that Luis Scola? Some of these guys like they were very productive and it carried over to the NBA, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you can like, I mean, like, how hard is this? That's where I thought the draft was kind of strange. Like, if you're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
getting,
this is a
yeah,
great idea for a future episode because Jokic factors into this too, to where it's like maybe these guys at 19 that haven't fully developed yet, like you shouldn't develop them in the NBA. You let them develop maybe another year or two. So I think Jokic came in like 2021. So if you take him in 19, I don't know if he develops into what he is here, but giving that extra time there to iron out his game probably helped out a lot. Yeah, I feel you on this. And just what you did right now, where you were able to name off like 5 or 6 guys that were veterans over in Europe before coming over, and then like struggling to name dudes that were essentially like the young guy at the end of the bench drafted up high. Also, I'd have to look at into it because I think the guys you all named were lower picks, which goes back to my thought of like the older guys taken later. They're in more of a successful setup because not much is expected of them. Whereas if you're drafted 4 overall, you got to produce from day one and look like a starter at the very least, and not struggle like a Dražen Bender did.
yeah. I'm looking at what is this? I'm looking at Nikola Jokic. I just want to see something since we're talking about it.
So the Knicks are up. It looks like they traded the pick to the Wizards too, is what ESPN is saying at 24. So come on, Pistons.
Did
Uh,
you see?
and the Wizards just took Keyshawn George. So my hopes and dreams are dashed.
Did you see that Deron Holmes was traded as well
Oh no, where'd he go?
to apparently to the Denver Nuggets?
Oh man, the rich get richer. That's really good.
Dude, you could kind of see him
Sons,
like,
sons, what are you doing? You're just killing yourselves. Why would you trade him to your division rival?
yeah, and I don't know. I know Deron Holmes isn't comparable to Aaron Gordon, but like if it all works out, maybe he can kind of play a similar role to Aaron Gordon, especially maybe offensively next to Nikola Jokic. But whew, that seems like you're right. The rich get richer, man. Dude,
Oh
oh
no.
my gosh. Dražen Bender, bro. I'm just looking at his numbers right now. They were bad. And this is just according to basketball reference, but like 2 points per game in 10 minutes. I know it's a different game overseas too, but uh just
Yeah, that
not
was the one
good.
that even at the time people were like, I don't think we should rank him up high. But again, it was people being like, we need to find the next Dirk. And it's like, there's only one Dirk.
Yep. He's a very hard guy to duplicate. I don't even know how to spell Nicholas Stavisky, so I'm just gonna go look at the Denver Nuggets from
I don't even know how to
2001.
say it. That's why I didn't bring it back up because I was like, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm just going by
Johnny
video games.
Furphy, Kyle Filipowski, Isaiah Collier, Tyler Kolek. Man, Collier falling this far. It happened in the mock draft. He went at 22 to his Suns in our mock draft. I cannot believe he's falling this far. This was the guy that was the number one RSCI recruit coming out of high school. I mean, 5 star. Sure, this is confusing to me because I'm like, sure, he had struggles at USC, but I don't think it's enough to like not like for Bub Carrington to go over him is a little weird. Um, was there another like Devin Carter? I that one I get because I'm like, okay, defense, sure. That Collier has those question marks, but man, The athleticism, the ability to get a bucket, over 30% assist percentage. Somebody's going to really luck out here with Collier.
Do you think there's a chance that New York drafts like Kyle Filipowski because they end up losing Isaiah Hartenstein?
I think they would draft Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn fits perfectly what they need.
Hmm.
Just a defensive monster. Ryan Dunn is on a whole nother level. He can be a primary perimeter defender and primary center all at the same time. He did it a ton for Virginia and had to make up for two wings and Groves and Rhodey, who just not very athletic. And then the power forward, who's both those guys I just named, Rhodey and Groves, are like 190. So you're playing with a small forward and a power forward who are like 190. So you had to make up for that. And then their other shooting guard, McNeely, was like 178, not a very good defender. I mean, just the job that him and Reese Beekman did to make up for all those guys on defense. And the Tibbs, I mean, Ryan Dunn is a Tibbs guy through and through.
Dude, yeah, he's 6'8", 208 pounds. Yeah, I see it. I
Yeah,
really
and Ryan
do.
Dunn was
And
up there too in terms of all the athletic testing. I know some people don't think he can be a small ball five, but I really buy into Ryan Dunn as a small ball five, 6'6" and a quarter inch without shoes, 213 pounds, 7 foot and a half inch wingspan. I mean, that's really where you see the shot blocking coming in on a whole nother level is him being able to use that wingspan combined with the athleticism.
yeah, in 34 games, his final year at Virginia, he had 77 blocks.
Yep.
That's just crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
These are the guys I fall in love with, man.
he was everywhere. That I think it was against Wake Forest. He had like 7 blocks or whatever. There are a few games that I'm pretty sure those teams are still seeing him in their nightmares. But he was definitely one of my favorite players. And again, secretly, I want the Pistons to be able to get him. I've said this so much. If you listen to this pod, you're probably sick of it. But he's not Ben Wallace, but he does a lot of things that Ben Wallace did to where you're like, he's undersized. He can play center. Oh, he's like not really doing anything other than rebounding and defending. But oh my gosh, he like can be the basis of the defense.
Who's a guy that I know we were just talking about Isaiah Collier, but like that you thought would go a little bit higher, but might slip in the second round now that we're seeing how this is starting to unfold? Who's a guy that you think will get drafted in the second round that you thought would be a first round pick?
I'd probably Furphy and Collier. Let me see who else is left here. Let me look at my own board. Well, I have done. I mean, Tyler Smith and Dunn would be the other ones there because I have Tyler Smith 9 on my board and Ryan Dunn 12. Like that's odd to me because they just do things that the NBA needs. And with Ryan Dunn too, I'm like, okay, sure, if you don't want to buy into him as a small ball five, how can you not look at him and see Brandon Clark? Like at the very minimum.
Yeah.
Brandon Clark works. And he's bigger than Brandon Clark too. Brandon Clark does not have that wingspan. Brandon Clark has short arms, and he doesn't have any of that production that Ryan Dunn had. And like Virginia guys, they just work in the NBA. Sure, maybe they're not like the pinnacle and some of the best players in the league, but how many NBA best veterans from Virginia under Tony Bennett do we have in the league right now? A lot.
Speaking of Virginia, oh, never mind, Virginia Tech. Never mind.
Yeah, careful. Don't make anybody mad, man.
I was gonna bring up Deron Washington. I don't know if you remember him. I thought he was like a second round pick by the Detroit Pistons. Super athletic, just not like the best basketball player, but I thought he was a Virginia guy.
The guy that I was like super high on as a second round pick for the Pistons was Tony Mitchell.
Yes, dude. Yes.
Yeah,
I've brought him up so many
I mean, he
times.
was rocked up. He shot the three that one year. I think what was he at Eastern Texas or somewhere like that? It was a small school.
Yeah, it was a very North Texas, I
North
think it was
Texas.
what it
Sorry,
was.
Stone
Yeah.
Cold. Stone Cold Steve
No.
Austin played football there, his alma mater. Sorry, Stone Cold.
Yeah, I think it was like what the North Texas Bobcats or something like that. And yeah,
Now it's
Tony
like the
Mitchell was
mean
one of those dudes.
green. It's like the mean green now. Was it? Has it always been that, or was it the Bobcats back then? Or you
I know
think
I
it's
gotta
San
look it up.
Marcos? Or you think it's Texas State? Because I
No, let
thought
me
they were the
see.
Bobcats or the Wildcats, Texas State.
Ooh, maybe it was
All
Texas
like
State.
200 football colleges. Ah,
Yeah,
so
it is Texas State.
the Knicks just took another one of the guys I wanted, Pacom Dadier,
Ooh, okay. Yeah, you were
25.
talking about him.
Yeah,
You think he fits with the Knicks?
maybe. I mean, skill wise, he should, but with how Tibbs doesn't want to play rookies, who knows if he gets any time. But as Ignacio laid out, the number one guy in this draft class for points per possession on spot ups. I mean, really good off the ball, 6'8", just very good dude that's going to shoot threes. Defensively, that's where I don't think Tibbs is going to play him very well. He still has some work to do. But again, why I've pushed him up more at the end is the Jade McDaniels things. There's not many guys that are 6'8" and like 210. Even if he's just an average defender, being 6'8" gives you an advantage over the rest of the field like that. And then just his abilities off the ball, he can play with anybody. Jam always has this word called fit proof, meaning like it does not matter what team they're on, it does not matter the roster, just their skill set works with everybody. I feel like Pacom Dottie is one of those guys. He's fit proof.
Mm, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and because Washington's picking next, right at 26.
Again,
I'm yep. I'm gonna go ahead and say they take a guard here at 26.
didn't they take Bubble or did they take? No, what did they take?
At the very well, I know they took Alex Sarr. Trying to think of where else they
So no, they
drafted.
did take Bub. So they got Sar, Bub, and Keyshawn. So I guess they ended up getting Bub in that trade with the Blazers. So they probably don't take another point guard at least.
Oh, I thought they were trading Bub Carrington, but maybe I'm wrong. Or it was Portland that traded him to
They have Portland that
Washington.
traded him because Portland took him.
Okay, never mind then. I was going to say Isaiah Collier to the Washington Wizards, but that doesn't make any sense now because they got their guy.
Maybe they take Furphy. I mean, this might be another Filipowski landing spot too. I'm not a big fan of Flip, but he works next to Sar as more of like an offensive guy, and he got better as a shot blocker too. The shooting never really came around. He had like if you take a look at his, it was like 3 or 4 game sample in end of February, beginning of March. The rest of the year, he shot something like 29% from three. So yeah, maybe in a few years he's like average shooter, but right now, not really training him like people wanted him to. Is there anybody left you want the Pistons to take?
I mean, I'm just still stuck on Tyler Smith. That's the
Yeah,
guy that I really like.
that
I mean,
makes
I even like Kyle Filipowski a lot too. I would like to see them go with a big guy, but I just don't even see them trading back into this first round because there was like something that I just saw on by Trajan Langdon where he said, I'm not so concerned with getting picks in this draft. I'm more concerned with getting future assets. So, as much hope as I had of him trading back in this draft, I don't see it happening.
well, they're stuck in maybe the worst situation in the NBA in terms of rebuilding because they can't trade anything other than their players. Like you said, even if they traded five, they would have to make the pick and then trade it back. Because of that pick that's stuck with New York, they don't have control over it until 2028, unless it conveys like next year, which I think it's still lottery protected, and then I think it becomes top 10 protected, and then I think there's one more protection on it, and then they can do it. So even if they wanted to make a big move, they don't have control of their picks, so throw that out the window. So yeah, trading back, I would love for them to trade back into round one, but it would take them moving one of their players, which who knows if they want to do that. So that's the
Hmm,
sucky part about it is just they just don't have anything. And even the players they do have, like who wants players from a 14 win team?
exactly.
Everybody, Cade included. I'm not saying they want to trade Cade, but if they did, everyone on this team is at their lowest possible value right now.
Yeah, man, I totally get it. I know.
So we shall see if the Pistons get a first round pick, but probably not. We're at pick 26 right now. Lance,
Yeah,
you got anything left to say?
I don't. And the final thing, I guess I'll leave it with this. I really hope they don't trade back into the first round now that I've had to, cut this short because I wanted to stay for the whole first round. But unfortunately, I do have to go, which kind of stinks. But yeah, I hope they do not trade anybody. I hope it just stays the way it is right now.
Yes, sir. So thanks, Lance, for joining me. Again, like you said, this is a fun draft. So I'll have
Yeah.
to try and do this every year.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast to do this. This was a lot of fun, dude. I really appreciate everything. I really do. And I appreciate your work a lot.
Right back at you, man. Great work with the Piston Fanatic, and then you and Zach breaking down like what comes next with Trajan next. So
Dude, and Eric
definitely, again, if
Vincent,
you don't listen to Three Championship Drive and you're a Piston fan, go do that now.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.